I ended up finishing the beat, did a little bit of arranging as well as adding, subtracting certain things. So I'm gonna play it so you could get the feel of the raw mix. The only thing that I've done is pan stuff left and right and did a little bit of leveling.
I promise you, I'm nothing like any of those other guys.
David, bless this beat.
There you go. That's pretty much the beat right there, raw. When it comes to the mixing, I'm gonna be focusing on the hook part of the beat. The way I structured it is intro, hook, verse, and then back to a hook here, and then it just repeats itself. One of the most important things when it comes to mixing your beats is you want to make sure you have everything routed, not just to the stereo output, but into individual buses. So here I got the loop here, and as you could tell, it is being routed to bus 1, which is loop. And then I have all the drums being routed into bus 2. So if I were to solo out the drums, all of these drums here are being routed to this one bus here. Anything that I do to this drum bus here is going to be affecting all of the drum samples. And then for the 808, I have it routed to bus 3. So pretty much all I got is the loop, the drums, and the 808. And I have all of these routed into a submix that is being routed out to the stereo output. And then I have the saturation and the reverb being bussed into the submix. So to do that, so for example, I have the saturation here, which is being routed to the stereo output, and I'm just going to change that to bus 15, which is a submix. So if I were to solo the submix, it's going to play everything. And if I want to lower the volume, it's going to lower the volume onto everything without having to touch any of the other faders. That's just the way I route my beats. If I'm mixing vocals, I kind of route it the same way, just using different buses. So when it comes to mixing my beats, I like working from low frequencies all the way to high frequencies, or a better way of putting it is I like working with the 808 and the kick, and then I like working with the sample and then the rest of the drums. When it comes to the 808, I'm using the 808 they used on Narcos by the Migos. I'm assuming it's like a Spins 808. And for the 808, I don't really do much because if I'm being completely honest, all of these drum samples, they've already been processed. The loop has been processed. Everything has been processed. It's already been EQ'd. It's already been compressed. There's not really much you could do other than emphasize certain frequencies or emphasize certain parts of the sample. So for the 808, I keep it minimum. If anything, I keep my mixing very, very minimum. It's just emphasizing certain things. So for the 808, first thing I do is just add an EQ, cut out high frequencies, cut out around 100 hertz, and then cut out 20 hertz. Doesn't really make that much of a difference. I'm just cutting out these high frequencies here. And then that kind of stops the clipping. But a cool trick you could do is if you were to go into the sample. So for example, I'm using the sampler within Logic Pro X. You can always just add like a fade tool. And this helps a lot when it comes to the actual clipping of the sample. Other than that, after I have it EQ'd, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a compressor. One of my favorite compressors to use on 808s or anything like basses, 808s. I like using the CLA 3A. Add some compression, change this high frequency. Now I have it about 50%, and then just adding a little bit of compression, not too much, nothing too crazy. Just without it. It adds a little bit of gain, but I mean, if you want to level match it, you could always just lower the gain. I just brought up the gain just a little bit. Now that I have it compressed, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a sidechain because I do not want the kick and the 808 to be clashing. I add a sidechain, and to do that, I'm going to be using RVox just because I really like RVox because it doesn't really add any color onto the track, as well as it's just really simple to use. So to sidechain it, I just brought up RVox and then go to here, sidechain, and then you just find the instrument. Usually you go to instrument and then it's instrument 5, which is the kick. So if I bring in the kick and the sidechain, so when the kick comes in, the 808 is being ducked. I have it manually to a fast attack as well as a pretty fast release. I have 3 dBs worth of gain reduction and have the threshold at 9. If I were to take off the sidechain, you're going to be able to hear both the 808 and the kick clash, and it's just going to eat up a lot of the headroom. And this is with the sidechain. So right now with the sidechain, it's at about -6. Without the sidechain, you're looking at about -3. So it saves you about 3 dB worth of headroom, which is really good because you do not want the 808 and the kick just to eat up all your headroom, because then your beats are just they're not gonna be well balanced. It's one of the things with mixing is you want to make sure everything's balanced. You want to make sure everything is just flowing together, and sidechaining is one of those things that you could use to your advantage to make sure you're saving headroom as well as getting a nice clean low end. Now that I have pretty much the 808 compressed, EQ'd, as well as some sidechain, I am going to be busting some saturation onto the 808. And what this is going to do, it's going to just add certain frequencies. It's going to add more harmonics. So all these little frequencies here from 30 all the way to 2K, is this saturation that I'm going to be using is going to add more frequencies to it. So what it's going to do is just going to give it a little fuller effect. So I'm going to overdo it, and then I'm going to bring it back. And you could hear the 808 pumping without the kick, which is pretty cool if you bring in the kick. So I'm going to add the saturation now. difference. If you were to really pay attention, if you're using like speakers or headphones, you're really going to hear the 808 just become a little bit fuller. And that's one of the cool things about saturation, is that it just adds a little bit of frequencies to just make the whole sample feel a little fuller. I'm using a, what is it, like a preset within the Abbey Road saturator, which is called 808 Clarity. I don't know exactly what preset it is, but it's somewhere in here. It's called 808 Clarity. They have a lot of cool presets in here, especially for like 808s and drums that you could just choose. And then from there, other than that, when it comes to the 808, I just add a little bit of reverb. I know a lot of people say not to add reverb onto your kicks and your 808s, but I just add a little bit just so it could add a little bit of reverb onto just these frequencies here. A cool trick you could do with your reverb is just actually EQ it. If I were to add a high pass onto the reverb, I'm just going to cut out all these frequencies here. Now I'm adding like very, very, very little amount of reverb onto the 808. It's not even that noticeable, but just overall within the mix, when everything's put together, there's going to be adding a little bit of reverb just to add a little bit of space onto the whole track itself. So now that pretty much the 808 is done, I'm gonna move on to the kick. And like I said, all these samples have been processed, so I'm just gonna add an EQ onto the kick. And all I did is just cut out a little bit of the low end just to give room to the 808. I cut out this boxiness here. That boxiness right there, I just cut that out. And then I'm cutting out a little bit of the high end and boosting around 2K just to add a little bit more of the kick. Just to add like that punch within the kick. And that's all I'm really doing to the kick. I mean, I add a little bit of reverb to it. Nothing too crazy. And then from here, now that I have the low end pretty much mixed within the song, I'm going to be adding in the sample. And as I'm mixing it, I'm always just re-leveling things. So I'm either lowering something or bringing up the volume. It just depends. For the sample, because the sample has been processed, it's been, EQ'd, it has reverb, it has compression on it. All I'm doing is just cutting out some low end to make room for the 808 and for the kick, as well as emphasizing or boosting up around 1,500 hertz just to bring out a certain part of the sample that I like, which is the flute. And then from there, what I'm doing is I'm gonna add a little bit of compression, not too much. I'm using this Abbey Road RS124 compressor. The reason I'm using it is just to add color onto the sample, as well as add a little bit of compression. So the reason I like this compressor is because you got like the unit type, you have the studio, and then you have the cutter. For the sake of this video, I'm gonna be using cutter. Studio sounds good also. The studio one makes it sound a little bit of darker, a little like a darker vibe, a more compressed vibe, which is cool. But I like the clutter just because it's going to bring out more of that high end. And then from there, now that I have a little bit of compression, I'm going to be using the drip plugin. This plugin is actually pretty cool. It has a lot of dope presets you could be using. For this sample, I ended up using the lo-fi preset. And I really liked how this preset made the sample feel. It just added a little bit of space. It added a little bit of width. Just made it a little bit more, I don't know, it just added like this dope feel to the sample. I mean, it adds like shape, heat, spice, depth, adds a little bit of like delay. What drew my attention to this preset was just the guitar. So if I were to play without it, the guitar sounds dope, but when you add this, it just adds like this dope feel. And then it still keeps the flute around roughly the same. So this plugin's pretty dope. And then I add some reverb. Usually for the sample, I add more reverb just because it's what's going to be carrying it, especially in parts like this where I cut the beat. And the reverb I use is just the sample space designer. It's the first one that pops up when you bring up the plugin. It's always really good, especially when mixing beats. Alright. So from here, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be individually mixing all of the rest of the drums. I have the 808 mixed down pretty much how I want it. The kick is pretty much EQ'd how I want it. And then the loop is EQ'd, compressed, and a little bit of effect as well as reverb. From here, what I'm going to do is just I'm going to finish up working on the rest of the individual samples. So for example, the clap, I'm going to add just an EQ, cut out this low end, add some smack attack. What smack attack's going to do is just going to add a little bit of more smack to it. Like it's it's in the name, I guess. It's going to make it, it's going to hit. Overdoing it. And then I'm going to add a little bit of width to it using Ozone Imager 2. This plugin's a free plugin you can pick up. Just look up Ozone Imager. And then I'm going to add some reverb. And if I'm being completely honest, all I really did to the samples is just add a little bit of EQ. I mean, with the percussion, this one, I just panned it to the right, added some EQ, which is cutting out the low end and boosting up some high. Smack attack. Putting this clip, and then adding ozone. And then the chirp, just add an EQ, cut out low, cut up high, just keeping the frequencies that are most important. The hi-hats, what I did to the hi-hats is I just added an EQ, cut out some highs, cut out some lows, just keeping the main frequencies. A cool trick you could do to your hi-hats is actually adding a plugin called Tremolo. It's a plugin I like using on hi-hats. It just moves the hi-hats left and right, and then I just bring the depth down to about like 20%. Just adds like a dope feel to it. And then to the hi-hats, I also added some halftime. So I created another bus here. I added some halftime as well as this modulation within waves. It just moves everything left and right, and I bust it onto the hi-hats. So you could hear it like a second hi-hat in the background, just moving left and right. It's a cool trick you could do to add to your beats. I pretty much do it on all of my beats. I really like how it sounds. It just adds like a dope feel, like another bounce, another feel to the background. For the second hi-hats, I have hi-hats with no time, which is pretty much with no halftime. It's just easier instead of having to automate the halftime up and down in certain areas. It's just easier just to create a new track and then just copy the same settings that I have on the hi-hats and then just paste it onto this new track and then just remove the halftime. It just adds like more variation to the beat. Have some parts of the hi-hats don't have the halftime, and then the other parts of the hi-hats have the halftime. Then from there I have the open hat, and all I did to the open hat is just cut out low frequencies, cut out high frequencies, and that's usually just the basics of mixing beats, like mixing instruments. But like I said, I have everything routed onto this one drum bus here. So this is where I do the majority of the mixing of the drums. Usually for the drums samples, I just do EQ, I add smack attack just to add certain emphasis, like add a snap, add a punch to certain instruments, and then add a width. But then when it comes to the drum bus, that's where I do the majority of the mixing. Like I add an EQ, Pultec EQ. So if you remember in the beginning, I said that I removed 100 hertz on the 808. The reason I did that is because I'm going to be boosting 100 hertz on the drums, which is going to be mostly the kick. I boosted it up 2 dBs. So altogether, what it does, it just makes the kick punch a little bit more. So what's going to get the speakers moving and bouncing and shaking is going to be the kick. It's not really going to be the 808. The 808 is just going to make everything sound fuller. The kick is what's going to punch and what's going to make those speakers just really bounce back and forth. And then I have a boost at 10K. So what this is going to do, it's going to boost everything: the percussion, the clap, the hi-hats, the open hat. So I have that boost there just to boost up that clap, add a little bit of snap. And then from there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the SSL compressor to compress all the drums, make it just one. It's going to make it sound like everything is just together. I have the ratio at 2. I have a slow attack and a fast release. Which makes it sound amazing. It makes everything just glued together. From here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add Dynamics Diablo, added a little bit of punch, a little bit of boost, some body. As well as a little bit of clip. Pretty much added a little bit of everything: some saturation, body, boost, punch, exciter, width. And then I brought the mix down just a little bit, and then I brought the mix down to 85. And overall, everything mixed, that is without the reverb. So if I were just to add the reverb onto all the instruments, it doesn't really make that much of a difference other than add a little bit of space. Like, that's pretty much the reverb that's being added onto. Onto the beat, nothing too crazy. It's just adding a little bit subtle amount of reverb, because other than that, for this beat, I feel like you don't really need that much reverb, because if you add a lot of reverb, it's just gonna kind of wash out the whole beat. So overall, I'm hitting about -3 dB, which is really good, because now there's still room to add vocals, as well as if you want to master it. So when it comes to mastering the beats, I know there's people who say you shouldn't master the beats, and I probably agree, you probably shouldn't be mastering beats. But for the sake of people uploading to YouTube and doing stuff like that, people master beats. Kind of defies the purpose, because when you're going to add vocals, you no longer have headroom, you no longer have any space to add the vocals. You're just now kind of stacking vocals on top of the beat. But throughout time, we've just gotten used to it. So now pretty much every beat that you get off YouTube is mastered. It has a limiter, it has compression, it has everything that should be on the master of a song. But because people master beats, I'm just going to show you how to do it and how I do it. So I'm going to bounce this out, and I'm going to create a new file to master this one beat. Like I said, I'm not a big fan when it comes to mastering beats. Usually when I send beats out to artists, I'm really just send them the mix version. That way they have enough headroom, they have the dynamics within the track itself, and they have everything they need to fully create a whole song together. This is the mixed version of the audio. As you could tell, it has a nice body. Everything's just very well put together. You have the intro here, which is a little bit louder, a little lower, and then here you have the drums and the 808s. You have the verse here, and then you have the hook again. But something you really want to take notice when it comes to the mixing, well, the audio file of the mixing, is you want to make sure everything is like consistent for the most part. Everything is well put together. You don't have these really big dynamic points here. So for the most part, everything is just very consistent throughout the whole song, which is a good thing. That's what you want. When it comes to mastering your beats, I don't really do anything that much different as if I were to master a regular song. I kind of just use the same mastering chain, just because, I mean, I want it to compete and I want it to be as loud as all the other beats that are on YouTube or that are being sent out. So I just use the same mastering chain as if I were to mix a normal song with vocals. Starting off with the Pultec EQ, the way I kind of just master my beats is just EQ, compression, saturation, and a limiter. So first thing I'm going to be doing is using the Pultec EQ. I kind of just have this preset I made. It's called the master preset. It kind of boosts up 30 hertz and then boosts up 16k hertz and then brings back the gain just a little bit. And then on the second Pultec that comes within waves, it does a little bit of dips and in certain frequencies. If you don't have waves Pultec EQ, you can always just use a regular Pultec EQ that comes within Logic Pro X. This thing works amazing. Literally, to me, same thing. If you want to invest money on the wave plugins, you can invest money on the wave plugins. If you don't, you could use the 2BQ within Logic Pro X. If you are looking into investing into some wave plugins, down below in the description, I do have a discount code that you could use. So you could get a discount on any wave plugins you want to pick up. That way it will save you some money. So if I'm going to play it with the 2BQ on. So now that I have that EQ'd, what I do is I like using this plugin here. This plugin is amazing. I picked this plugin up for free. I think it emulates that, like the SSL Fusion, some hardware like that. I don't know if this is still free. You could probably just look up the name. Maybe you have a chance of getting it for free. I'm not 100% sure. But the reason I like this plugin is just because it's so simple to use. It's a bus processor. So you have your drive here, some EQ, some more EQ, you have a compression, and then you have the stereo width, which is very important when it comes to beats. You want to make sure everything's just wide, make sure everything just has its space. So for the drive, I'm gonna add some harmonics, add a little bit of texture. Beautiful. I love this plugin. I swear to God, I use this plugin all the time when it comes to mastering, just because it's so good. I just really like this harmonics, the drive, this boost on the 18K sounds amazing, and then add a little bit of width, nothing too crazy. From here, what I'm gonna be doing is I'm gonna be adding dynamics. Diablo, I know I used it for the drums, but I really love this plugin for mastering. It just does wonders. So I'm gonna just take everything off that I had on it, and then we'll just start from the beginning. I'm gonna add some punch. I ain't even gonna lie, bro. You could probably just master the whole song using this one plugin, and it'll just makes everything just sound amazing. Literally everything you need to master a song is in this one plugin. I forgot exactly why they made it for. I don't know if it was exactly for mastering or if it was for like your drums, but bro, I'd be using this to master songs. Works amazing. Works wonders. Now that I have that, pretty much I have everything EQ'd how I want it. What I'm gonna be doing is I'm gonna add a compressor just to glue everything together. On the mixing stage of mixing the beat, I added this plugin to compress the drums, but now I'm going to be using it to compress the whole entire track together. And I did the same thing, ratio 2, slow attack, fast release, and then I'm just adding a little bit of compression, nothing too crazy. I don't want to squish the hell out of these dynamics. I want the dynamics to be in the beat. If you really hear it, it just brings everything together and just makes it sound like one full track. And that's one of the reasons why I really like this compressor here. Like I said, if you're looking to pick up these wave plugins, down below there will be a discount code. Now, I usually add this because I like using the Ozone plugin. So before I use this, I like using the Ozone plugin. I just use Master Assist. So overall, what it's telling me is that we have a lot of high end, and then we need a little bit more of this body here. The 808 sounds cool, the kick sounds cool, but we just need to focus on this. So now that I know this information, thanks to Ozone 9, now what I could do is I could go back to this pull tech here and then just lower this boost here. I probably even lower it just to 1, and then go back to this plugin here, and then lower it just a little bit, go into Diablo, and then just lower this exciter just a little bit, probably add a little bit of more body, and then I'm cool off that. I don't really match it exactly, but like I said, I use this SSL just to match this one frequency here. So I'll throw in this plugin, go around 3,531, 3,500, probably match the curve all the way, and then I'm just gonna boost it about 1.5, and then we're good like that. And something I like doing is, if you notice that Ozone is telling you to increase certain frequencies all the time, it could be due to your room. So for example, in my room, because I am in a home studio, a lot of the mids and high frequencies are really getting like absorbed with the sound installation that I have. So it's kind of hard to hear those frequencies, because to me in my speakers they sound like it's good, but to the outside world they're kind of going to be lacking a little bit. So it's cool to notice what Ozone 9 kind of tells you. It's not 100% perfect, but for the most part it kind of it reveals to you like, oh, maybe I should focus on these frequencies, where in my speakers, once it sounds cool, maybe you should just boost it a little bit more, and it kind of just counteracts. So that's just a side note. I like using this presets. Sometimes I like using this master hip hop or the R&B. It just kind of just depends on the vibe of the song. We'll go through them. I like this modern hip hop one. The R&B one sounds good too, but the modern hip hop just adds like that hip hop vibe to it. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna remove these high frequencies here that it boosted, because I don't want any more. When it comes to these frequencies here, I don't want it to be dipped too much, so I'm just gonna bring it back at about 0.8, just because I know that whatever this frequency is cutting, it's cutting out across the whole beat. So whatever is here, like the flute, the clap, the percussion, whatever instruments are here, it's gonna be cut down. And then around the 400 hertz, I'm just gonna lower it a little bit, nothing too crazy. And then the low frequencies here, I'm just gonna bring it up around 0.3. I'm gonna turn this limiter on, turn this limiter off, and then I'm gonna add a little bit of imaging. So now that I have that like that, I like using this Smart EQ. When I made the beat, I was using Smart EQ 2, but I picked up Smart EQ 3, so I'm just gonna use that one. And what Smart EQ is just kind of doing is it's adding its own curve, and I like using this dynamic, something that the Smart EQ 2 didn't have. Boost it up all the way, and then you're gonna see this move. This Smart EQ is like one of those plugins that you didn't know you needed until you got it, and it just changes the way you see things, because like all these EQs here, they're standard. Like you boost the frequency and it's boosted forever. Like not forever, but for the most part it's just boosted. Like the 16K, everything at the 16K is boosted, no matter if the hi-hats come in harder, or you know what, you add a crash, now you got more 16K. But with this dynamic, you could see it, how it emphasizes certain parts and then compresses other parts. So like if you notice this part here, when the clap comes in, it just lowers it, but when there's no clap, it brings it back up. So it adds, like, I don't know how to explain it that good, but it just adds like this dope, like it adds life to the beat where it's physically moving. So as you're hearing it, there's certain frequencies that are being boosted up, and then the clap comes in and then just lowers it, but it still sounds amazing throughout the whole song. So, clap and lowers. Or the hi-hats, like when the hi-hats come in, it's just lowering them a little bit, but when there's no hi-hats, because of the pause of the hi-hats, it raises that volume. Yeah, this plugin's amazing. I like using it. So from here, what I'm gonna be doing is I'm gonna add a limiter. So like I said, some EQ, some compression, a little bit more EQ, and then I'm gonna add a limiter. Put the out ceiling at 0.01, and then I brought the threshold a little bit just to add a little bit of volume, and then I'm gonna use the TR5 clipper just to clip it. And then for the slope of the clipper, I'm just going to be using this one here, a hard clip, just because it really sounds good on the 808 and the kick. I'm not going to really bring up that much gain. We already have enough gain. And then, I mean, because we are mastering the beat, it is going to sound loud. So, I mean, you'll be good at like -12. Usually when I master rap songs, I go -9. But if you push it all the way to -9, then you're just not going to leave room for the vocals. But I don't know if you should be mastering beats or not. I guess it's kind of subjective. It's up to you if you want to do it. I'm just showing you how to do it and how I would do it when it comes to mastering beats. I mean, I do it. Upload beats to like my website. If you're looking for beats, check out the website down below in the description. But I also include the mixed version. So when you download a beat or you purchase a beat off my website, you're getting the mastered version of the song as well as the mixed version of the song. Not a lot of people do that. I don't know anybody who actually does that, but I do it just because. Why not? Sometimes you need the mixed version, sometimes you need the mastered version. I like the mastered version just because when you play it in your car, you're like blasting in your headphones, you get the full, the full effect of the beat. But when it comes to the actual recording of the vocals, it will be really good to use the mixed version of the beat because you're no longer squishing the dynamics, and the mixed version of the beat has the dynamics. This mastered version doesn't because it has a limiter, it has all this processing on the beat. So when you're gonna record a song or you're gonna mix some beats, it's good to just have the knowledge, have the idea of, someone's gonna put vocals on this. Maybe I shouldn't squish out the dynamics, and maybe the song will come out just like 10% better, 20% better. It all stacks up. It all adds up. So like I said, when I send out beats, I usually send out the mixed version. If you're going to purchase beats, or if you're looking for beats, down below I have a link to my website. You could download some beats for free, and it comes with the mixed version as well as the mastered version. So if you're an artist, you could choose whether you want to use the mastered version or the mixed version of the beat. That's pretty much how I mix and master my beats. If you have any questions, or if you want me to mix and master one of your songs or one of your beats, feel free to hit me up on Instagram. Everything will be down below in the description. Check it out. Everything that you need to know, everything you are looking for is down below in that description. I want to remind you to subscribe, drop a like, and drop a comment. It really helps me a lot. I am using this beat to enter a competition. Am I gonna win? I don't know. I'm just some dude that makes beats in his room and teaches people how to engineer. So if you know what competition I am entering, it'll be dope if you vote for me. If not, it's cool. If you're competing in the competition, good luck, and I hope you win. My name is David the Crook, and I hope to see you in the next video. Peace.